In your relationships, do you often find yourself flooded by a lot of strong feelings or dramas or traumas? That is called spewing, and it's detrimental to your relationships, and I'm going to tell you why. Hi, my name is Dr. Assael Romanelli, and this is The Potential State, and today we're in Own Your Shit 16, the art of sharing, spewing versus opening a shutter. So generally speaking, there are two typical ways I can protect myself from intimate vulnerability. I can either become a bunker and not say anything, or I can go to the opposite extreme and spew. Spew is I'm just taking a machine gun and just shooting everything I'm feeling, all these big feelings, all these big dramatic moments, traumatic moments, and the listener is just flooded. Now, why would people do that? So there's a few gains. First of all, it's a temporary release. B, it also gives you the sense of being open and vulnerable. All right, I'm opening up, I'm sharing everything. But actually what's happening is I'm protecting myself because I'm spewing so much that no one can come close, because whatever topic they want to talk about, I immediately have 7 other things I want to share, I want to talk about. And actually it's giving the other person, the listener, a sense of, you can't help me, I'm helpless. And whenever you say it's just a drop in the water, a drop in the ocean, it's nothing, it's meaningless. So the price I'm paying is I'm distancing the listener. I'm seen as a victim and as helpless. And actually what I'm getting, a lot of times, this spewing comes across as self-presentation. Almost like this facade. It's hard to believe that there's so many things and nothing I say is enough. So if you're going to do self-presentation, what you're usually going to get from the listener is these generic, oh, I'm so sorry for you. Oh, that's horrible. And you're not going to really feel seen or supported. It's going to have this falseness to this encounter. And I want to give a few examples how that looks like, and then what I suggest would it be a better approach. So many years ago, when I just started teaching playback theater, I was doing a drop-in class, a trial class, and this woman came in and she raised her hand. The first story, I'm telling you, this is a drop-in class. People don't know each other. People are testing it out. And she just spewed out this really intense story about sexual abuse and violence and trauma and gender identity and all these things to a group of strangers, basically. And nobody really knew what to do with it. And it was in my early days of facilitation. I didn't really know when I tried containing it. And lo and behold, she never came back. She spewed and she left. And I learned a very important lesson from that woman is the price you pay for spewing is there's a whiplash where you close up. Because the listener doesn't know what to do with it. You feel like, they can't hold me. They can't contain my truth. And that just justifies why you shouldn't be opening up. So you're moving between being a bunker and spewing. Being a bunker and spewing. Several years ago, another example from the clinic, I was supervising a female therapist who was just beginning her journey, and every time we spoke about a difficulty she was facing with one client, she would immediately spew on 7 other clients she was working with. So in fact, in every given moment, there was just fires all over, and we had to firefight, and we couldn't actually talk about any specific session. And it took me a while to realize that, to formulate that into words. And what I realized is she's protecting herself from me really seeing her in one of her moments in one of her therapies and actually giving her constructive feedback. So the way she protected herself is by spewing all these difficulties she has with all her clients. That makes me, as her supervisor, feel like I'm not really doing my job because she's really, she's collapsing under all this pressure. But I actually was protecting herself and fending me away, keeping me away. And after we verbalized that, I had the courage to say to her, let's just stay with this client. It takes a lot of courage, and also the price you pay is rupture, right? It's going to a little bit insult the spewer, but actually at the end of the day, what you're telling the spewer is slowly, slowly. Or as in Arabic, we say shwaya, shwaya, slowly, slowly. And I'll give one more example from couples therapy. This couple I was working with, and she saw herself as the victim in the relationship, and she had all these pains and big feelings, and her husband wasn't listening to him. But what was fascinating to me as she started talking about it, there was just so much of it, and it's always 360. No matter where I go, it's just more pain, more trauma, more drama. And what was fascinating is that her husband experienced all this spewing as being very authentic. As for me, I shared with her like something about it was so dramatic that I couldn't hold on to anything. I couldn't meet her there. Nothing was landing because it was just like da 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 da. And after a while, when I shared with her these this concept, this realization, she could slowly calm down, and she would share one thing, and we would stay with that one thing. And if we're talking about one thing, what I want to suggest, the metaphor I want to suggest is opening a shutter. So instead of spewing, open a shutter. And what that means, you're just opening a little bit. You're sharing one little thing, one little thought, one little moment, one little pain. And the advantage of opening the shutter is it's experienced as self-exposure. You're actually, paradoxically, you're more open because you're giving one thing. That thing can land in the listener. There's silence around that. We can both feel together. One of the definitions of intimacy is meeting yourself in the presence of the other. Into me see. So when I open a shutter, I'm letting the other person see me for a second. And then both of us can look at this one thing that was just raised, and we can meet there. And for a moment, it's a high risk, high gain. I'm risking being vulnerable. I'm risking that person will touch or criticize or look or even play the thing I share. But the gain is the high gain is that I might actually feel less alone. I might actually be touched by what they're saying. And we're going to have a real intimate moment there. So instead of spewing, open a shutter. And how can you do that? Think of a relationship that is full of spewing, either that you spew or your partner spews. Share with them this episode. Then, as the listener, dare for a rupture, but from time to time, just ask for a timeout. Say, let's just stay with this topic. You just said something very important. I know you want to talk about other things. Let's just stay here. The other person might get insulted, or the holy trinity of blocking. They might get insulted, disappointed, or surprised, but just say, I want to stay here. I want to stay with this point. And if needed, repeat what you just heard. So we're talking about right now the disappointment you felt at work today. Let's just stay there for a second. And breathe. As the speaker, if you notice that you're spewing and you're all over the place, first of all, name it to tame it. Own your shit. Say it. Say, well, I'm all over the place. And take a second and think to yourself, what is one thing that I really want to not only share, that I want to meet at? One topic I want you to touch. Where do I want to lean on you? Where do I want you to touch me there? And then I stay on one topic and I leave space for silence. I don't have to fill everything with big words. I can just say something small and just leave it there for a second. Stay in the silent. Stay in the contact. Stay in the vulnerability of that moment. And as both of you are observing this one thing that you've shared, try to breathe and hold on to yourself. And over time, you will cover less ground. There will be less topics, less folders open on the desktop in your relationship. But whatever you share will be respected, will be met, will be seen. And that is a way to enrich your relationship. And that is the art of sharing. So my name is Dr. Assael Romanelli, and this was The Potential State. I'll see you next time.